Hello and welcome back to module number 9. Today we're going to cover quite a lot of things, and so I'll try to be as clear as possible. First, we are going to talk about multivariate analysis. What does it entail? And we are going to look at that through the eyes of ggplot2, and I'll try to make it as coherent as possible with regard to what it stands for and how can we apply. And again, I highly recommend that you will look at the books, our textbooks, as a reference to what does it entail to analyze multivariant and categories in order for us to make sense out of it. So let's start. Before I start, in the reading recommendation, I ask you to read chapter 4. The subject of is visualization patterns. He calls it patterns over time, but it's basically about multivariant analysis. Also, I will also talk about general graph design principles, and I want you to be more involved. Not only show me the code, not only show me the output of your work. I want you to, in your blog and postings, I want you to address those issues because those are the issues that is really important. So, what is a good design and how it I'm going to outline for you 5 principles of design, and it was introduced by Anthony Horton. He is a web designer. He is not graphic or analytic designer, but he is very active with regard to the subject of design principles, and you can find more about that. But he outlined a quite simple principles that if you will follow, and you will not follow all those 2 books that I gave you, and you remember them, that will be a good start. So, according to him, the first rule of design, a good design for the web, is alignment. Alignment create a sharp and sharper, more coherent design, which means that everything has to be aligned in order for it to be comprehensive by the user who does not know the story behind your design. So the alignment is one of the most basic principles in design, and it allowed us to create order and organization among elements. Example, the alignment. Think about how the alignment of the key terms here help to make sure that we are aligned with the message that we are trying to do. A second principle of design, according to him, is repetition. And again, the issue of repetition is really important because it gives the idea of closeness to the graphic element. So the consistent of the repetition element is widely used in document. Example, in companies, or example in USF, every website or every page on a website has a logo of USF. So this is repetition that the user get used to. And in our case, it's really important because if you're going to show more than one visual, try to be consistent or try to show repetition in order for you to succeed. Other element of design, according to him, is the contrast of repetition, is to show contrast. And this is what we are going to talk about today with regard to multivariance analysis. So the idea of contrast or contrast is the ability to show one different from another. So it require quite a lot of work, but in order for you to be successful, you have to do some thinking or some creative thinking. In example, black and white, again, the designer of this idea was that the black is in black with a white background, with comparison to the white, which is with white words or colors, but the background is black. Again, manipulation or thinking more in depth about that. Proximity is another way for do that, and it's the idea of put together the elements in the same relationship or the same contrast in order for to show the contrast between them. Example, the use of a point size or a font or a color, etc. Balance is another way for us to do that, and again, the issue is that we have two ways to do that systematically, and which is the weight of the element on both sides are equal, and giving a central line, which means that we are always showing the same element. And in the end, I'll show you how I can do that with regard to ggplot2. And the other type is the use of a contrast dark element that would balance by several light elements in order for us to show that there is imbalance or balance with regard to the idea. So again, the idea of balance, look at the two differences here, how they apply. This is from an artist, a Hispanic artist, and again showing how we can do a balance by using a contrast in order for us to apply. A textbook, a big textbook, Stefan Few showed me the numbers, talk about maintain visual correspond to the quality. And he repeats, I think one of the main themes that he repeats again and again, try to avoid 3D. So some argue that rule number 4 and rule number 5 in our previous 5 principle of design is the rule of balance has some direction as maintain visual correspondence. So the idea is bad example, and the idea of how it can be applied to multivariance. So back to our subject, which is multivariance analysis, when we are talking about more than one element, more than one variable, and I will show you through R, and I will play with the data set that is used by cars. It's empty cars, and it shows a different type of cars and what their mileage, what is the weight, the grab, the gas consumption, etc., etc. It is quite popular, and ggplot2 use that quite often in that regard. So those variables can apply to cars such as Mazda, Fiat, Honda, Toyota, and in this field allowed us to use multivariant profile so we can show what we can do with that. So the variable characters of the empty cars is example gross power. And again, the idea here is that we can add it to the ggplot2 in order for us to visualize these multivariance and ideas. So we are going to use several aspects of ggplot2. ggplot2 has a lot of grammar, visual grammar, syntax, and I gave you some reference and I gave you some background on that. But the idea here is that how can we make the embedded into the design itself or into the code in R in order for us to make sure that we are coherent with regard to the visual grammar rules that we apply. So linear module and its relationship to multivariance analysis. Simple linear, usually it's about one variable that can be continuous or categorical. Multivariance model is a module that is talking about the attempt to assess the relationship between a number of variables, and they can be continuous or categorical, but there are more than one. So in simple linear regression, we are talking about one. In multivariance, we are talking about more than one. So in ggplot2, this is a classic example that becomes a standard with regard to how to apply more than three or four categories, where the main category is MT versus MPG. And the idea here is again showing how the distribution of the data can be applied. So when we get a linear trend in our ggplot2, the gray area shown is uncertainty in the fit. It is 95% confidence interval where the true trends could be. So it's worth noting that it is not a perfect linear fit. We see that the values, both the low and the high, have the tendency to be higher than would be predicted. So dealing with those issues is beyond the scope of the class. I'm not going to talk about the statistics, even though most of you took my statistical class, and I want you to think about that in that referring. But to those who did not took the statistical classes or any classes and want to be involved in visual analytics, again, the idea here is that how do we apply that into code? And the idea is that we have to have some structure into the ggplot2 with regard to the ability to add aesthetic to the ggplot2. So the aesthetic AES has some premises that we need to put in order for us to generate, and this is the outcome that we are creating. So what is the effect? Why is the ggplot so powerful with that regard? And so the idea here is that, yes, the same is true to the what is the effect of it, and how can we look at that in statistical sense. We can talk about what is it means, the high weight or the low gas mileage that those cars or the high the analysis reveal to us. But the idea here is that we are using visual display to display the multivariance in the idea of ggplot2. So I'm going to show you several aspects of it. And the idea here is that, again, we are going to see graph-based visual that is common in form of visual design. And it is usually, the idea is based on ancient time or ancient Rome, and where they use that in the idea of how to apply that. It's usually used to have a sign that everyone would recognize, and the idea is that nowadays words change these signs into more pragmatic understanding of how we communicate or share this experience. So the idea is visual attributes and the variable, example, color, body temperature, shape of the head is the blood type, and so on and so on. So the idea here is, again, we can name it or can we evaluate it by using faces as a representation of space with regard to humans. In R, there is a package called grasses, and the idea behind it is that the ability to show shades of the data set that we have. So the idea here is that we're going to use CogRAM consists of visual display, and it ability to show representation of the cell of a matrix in correlation. So the idea here is that we are trying to show the variables and compare to other variable in this data set. So in this case, how do we use it? We need to install the package. There's two packages in Intel. And then we're going to use a sample that comes from FactorMineR, which is in the library of the Factor. And in this case, this is the outline of it. and how it shows. This is a heat map, and again showing the different aspect of the variables. We have 4 variables in this, and each variable has different colors and different set, and this is part of the beauty of visualization. So how do we do that? Again, I'm going to take the NBA and I'm going to take it from flowingdata.com, and the idea here is, again, I will set it up adding ggplot2, and I will try to set it up with regard to the plot itself, the aesthetic of the plot, the geo title of the plot, the scale, and close everything in order for me to create something like that. And again, this is the beauty of it. Another package that is quite popular, used to be quite popular in R, and it's a visual, the idea of displaying it 3D. So it was developed in 1993, long time ago, and it used to provide high-level lattice function that not actually print or plot anything. They created an object of the class which can be printed or plotted. So the idea of the plot here is little different syntax with regard to the R code, is that we customize the power settings has no effect, and in this case it can be powerful or not. So using the step of the lattice package, again you have to install the package, and you're going to create again the y plot, and you give it dimension to it, and in order for you to create something like that, yes, it is very interesting. However, if we will go back to the principles of design, there is a lot of problems with it. There is not clear consistency with regard to how we do things, what is label, what is not label, what is contrast, not contrast, and all the things that we learn about principles of design, it's sometimes missing the point, and this is a problem. Again, note about the coding and who has created it and how to apply that. What is the formula of lattice? The formula is quite simple. It is z at x multiplied by y, so you can have y1 and y2 and the value of x together in that way. So again, this is the result of it and how to apply that. Last example of the lattice graphics, again the idea of 3D in order for you to show dimensions and to show 3 dimensions in that space. So multiple variants is best shown, and it shows me ranking items by similarities. There are popular and universal approach to structure. I want you to think about that when you're starting to apply different code in order for you to do that. One of the things that we often apply when we are trying to apply multivariants is the idea of clustering. Clustering can be a good thing and can be a bad thing. In visual, it can be confusing. So you as a designer of visual analytics need to be very careful how to apply the clustering into it, and the idea of how to apply that will make more sense, and to apply that in giving the directions that users are often apply to or think of when they are doing that. I'm going back to in R and ggplot2, the principles and how to apply that. We can create a grid and to arrange it, and by doing that we are able to do multiple things and multiple ideas how to apply that. Box plot is often very helpful, and again this is the code in order for you to do that. To learn about clustering, I highly recommend that you will visit the statistical shape analysis. And this is a website that you're able to see. And this is it. I know this is the last module before the spring break. I want you to be aware that during spring break I will provide more information or more about the final project, and I started to post more information. I hope you enjoy that. Until next time, enjoy your spring break. Bye.